In Ray Epps news, Ray Epps is now looking to sue Fox News for defamation over claims that Fox News made that Ray Epps was involved in a conspiracy as it relates to the January 6th attack on the Capitol. And as part of this lawsuit, Ray Epps reveals that he expects criminal charges to be coming down the pike, which is a little bit surprising in some ways that it hasn't already come. I mean, he was literally there that day at the gates, whispering things to people as they charged in. And so, one would think that that would be, for example, an inducement or something like that. Things seemed a little bit weird. And also the night before, like actively encouraging people to take the Capitol and such and so forth. People have been charged over less, but Ray Epps, for some reason, not charged. And maybe he's going to be charged. So let's learn a little bit more about this lawsuit. Let's learn a little bit more about this defamation. Let's tease out a little bit more about these potential criminal charges. Let's get started with this. Ray Epps, who is a frequent subject of Fox News and a Trump supporter who claims he's the subject of conspiracy claims, is suing Fox News for defamation. Okay. I mean, all right. Good luck with that on some level, I would think, because there seems to be a lot of information that Fox News is basing its claims off of, because we can't help noticing that you're out in the crowds and seem to be somewhat strongly encouraging people to behave in ways that are not necessarily legal. And also, we can't help noticing that you were there on the day of, literally at the gates. But, okay, so there's some suggestion that Ray Epps had some involvement in this in ways that are questionable. The suit, which is filed in Delaware, accuses Fox of creating and disseminating destructive conspiracy theories and recklessly disregarding the truth. Epps' suit claims that Fox News used Epps as a scapegoat during the assault on the Capitol and told a fantastical story in which Ray Epps, who is a Trump supporter that participated in the protests on January 6th, was in fact an undercover FBI agent and was responsible for the mob that violently broke into the Capitol and interfered with the peaceful transfer of power for the first time in country's history. Well, as the first time in country's history, I'm not so sure about that claim. But as to them being an undercover FBI agent, well, whether or not they were FBI or not, there was a lot of his behavior did seem to be suggestive of someone who was a governmental actor of some kind who might be trying to stir things up, in a way to induce people to break the law. So when people were shouting "Fed, Fed, Fed" at Ray Epps, was he FBI? Maybe, maybe not. But was there some information that might suggest he was perhaps part of some sort of governmental operation on some level to perhaps get people to behave in a manner? Well, some of his behavior was at least suggestive of that possibility. Epps voted for Trump in both 2016 and 2020 and acknowledged being a mid outside the mob. Yes, he certainly did. And we saw him on camera doing a whole bunch of things that seemed to be, not necessarily in the most lawful, encouraging spirit. He said Fox News provided a platform as audience for claims that Epps was a federal agent planted as a provocateur to trigger the Capitol violence. Well, he was definitely provoking people. He might have been provoking people in a way that's lawful, incidentally, because when we talk about incitement legally, incitement requires imminence, requires it to happen right now. So was he inciting people the night before? Legally, no. He can't really be inciting people the night before. That's not really a thing because it gives people time to cool off. So, but he was provoking them, I think is fair in a non-legal sense, perhaps in a way that's not illegal. But to say that he was saying, let's go take the Capitol, let's storm the House, let's go take it, let's all do it. That's pretty provocative. Even if legal, it's provocative. So yeah. And was he there on someone's behest or someone's suggestion in some sort of official capacity of somebody? I don't know. But for people to say that his behavior was reminiscent of people who have done such things in the past, yeah, I think there's some suggestion to that, to be sure. The civil suit makes specific allegations about Fox News' host, Tucker Carlson. The suit says that Fox and Carlson commenced a year-long campaign spreading falsehoods about Epps. Those lies have destroyed Ray and his wife's lives. As Fox recently learned in Dominion voting system, lies have consequences. Yes, but dominion voting is a lot different factually, at least to my mind, right? The whole basis of defamation is the basis for making claims. So when you're talking about dominion voting and you're talking about things, it's like, what is your basis for making these claims? And they made it last statements that are just provably false in dominion voting. So, there was problems. And with Ray Epps, I'm not sure that that necessarily is factually correct, or it's the same factual posture. As it doesn't strike me as immediately obvious that's the same posture, because Ray Epps was clearly involved in some sense with the January 6th. And that may or may not be criminal in its nature, right? When we talk about criminality, we have to get into the details as always. But to say that Ray Epps was involved in some sense, well, I mean, he literally was there the night before, actively encouraging crowds specifically to invade the Capitol. And then he was there the day of, literally at the gates, whispering in someone's ear who then went through the gates. So, to suggest that he was involved and participated in some sense, even if what he did was legal, which is questionable, but even if it was, to say that he was involved, yeah. So the Fox News has a little bit more to work with, it seems to me, than they did with Dominion voting. So yes, defamation can be a thing. It's not inherently or immediately obvious. It's a thing in this particular context, though. But we can see how it develops, I guess. After the Capitol riots, Carlson spoke about Epps on his Fox News show 20 times, saying, quote, Ray Epps, he's on video several times encouraging crimes, riots, and breaches of the Capitol. That seems to just be factually correct. He is on video encouraging crimes, riots, and breaches of the Capitol. That is a correct statement. As far as I can tell, I mean, I literally saw it with my own eyes. So he is on video. He is encouraging. Is it illegal? No, not necessarily. It's not necessarily illegal to encourage people to break the law, but he's doing it. So there's that. Epps told CBS on 60 Minutes earlier this year he went to the Capitol because he believed the election had been stolen from Trump. On January 5th, the night before the riot, he went to a rally and said, quote, tomorrow, we need to go into the Capitol. Into the Capitol. Uh-huh. That's, yeah. And people responded, what? And Epps added peacefully and was met with cries, fed. So, yeah, we need to go into the Capitol. Well, that certainly seems to be encouraging. That certainly seems to be provoking. That certainly suggesting it is suggestive of illegal conduct. It raises the possibility of illegal conduct, not incitement legally, because it necessarily has a time delay in it. But there's something there, possibly. He did that. He said that. He explained to Whitaker that he meant there should be peaceful protests at the Capitol, but said, I did some stupid things. Well, he didn't say we need to go at the Capitol. He said we need to go into the Capitol. So, yeah. On January 6th, he was seen in a video at the Capitol, pulling aside and saying something to one rioter. Yeah, he seemed to whisper into a woman's ear just before she stormed past the gates. So there was that. Conspirators say he was giving marching orders because second later, the first Capitol officer went down. Like a second later, basically. I mean, yeah. Epps told CBS that when he saw the violence, he instead wanted to calm things down. He was never seen committing an act of violence that day or entering the Capitol. He later spoke with the FBI in the summer of 2021. The FBI removed his photo from the website. Yeah, it seems to me that the FBI and Department of Justice have arrested and charged people for less. So, was he behaving legally? I mean, there's an argument that he was behaving legally. I don't want to put it completely past the possibility that he was behaving legally. I mean, if the gates are the line of demarcation and he didn't pass the gates, then I suppose he didn't commit trespass. If he's merely encouraging people the night before, he's legally not inciting. And depending on what he whispered into the woman's ear, that could be legal too. So did Ray Epps break the law? I honestly don't know. And I'm not trying to be too cute about it. I'm just trying to say I don't honestly know. what law he broke, because there's not immediately obvious. He didn't seem to pass the gates, no trespass. He didn't enter the building, so no parading. He didn't seem to openly say, let's enter the Capitol, and it happened right now, no incitement. There doesn't seem to be an agreement or that people made with him. So he said, let's enter the Capitol. And people said, yeah, let's enter the Capitol, which could be arguably conspiracy, maybe, depending. But so it's not immediately obvious that he broke any laws. But the FBI and DOJ seems to have gone out of its way for less and let him off the hook in a somewhat questionable way. Carlson took note of the photo's removal, and Trump responded too. How about the one guy? Go in. Epps, get in there. Go. Nothing happens to him. That seems to be a fair paraphrase of what occurred. So, yes, that's what he said. He said it the night before, but that is an accurate paraphrase of what seemed to be on tape. Epps said the threats and harassment that followed him forced him to sell his ranch. He and his wife now live in a 300-square-foot recreational vehicle somewhere in the Rocky Mountains. The FBI said in a statement to 60 Minutes in April that Ray Epps has never been an FBI source or an FBI employee. All right, so it's pretty unusual for the FBI to actually say one way or another. They don't typically confirm or deny. So for them to finally say in April that he's never been an FBI source or an FBI employee, okay, so right. So we'll assume the FBI is telling the truth here, which I know is a big assumption for some people, but the FBI typically doesn't make these statements. So we could question this two different ways, by the way. First of all, is the FBI being very clever in their language, that he's not an FBI employee. Do they mean employee in the sense of like a W-2 employee? So he was never like an FBI agent in a proper sense? Or do they mean that he never worked with the FBI or never worked for the FBI? That he's not an FBI source. Okay, so he is not a whistleblower or a collaborator who turned state's evidence. But has he ever worked with the FBI in any capacity? Has he ever taken direction from the FBI? Was he working at the behest of the FBI? So the FBI says he isn't a source or employee. So first thing you could do is parse this because the FBI might be being really, really clever with their language, which would not be atypical, right? It's like, he wasn't this, and they hope you read into it more than they really said. So that's the first way you could question it. Second of all, even if he didn't work with the FBI in any sense of the term, maybe he wasn't working for the FBI. There are a lot of law enforcement organizations out there. There are a lot of federal organizations. There are a lot of state organizations. There are a lot of local organizations. So was he working for the FBI? Even if you assume the answer to that question is no, he wasn't working for the FBI. It doesn't necessarily preclude him from working for somebody else. Who might that someone else be? I don't know, but the FBI certainly isn't telling you that he wasn't working for any sort of law enforcement in any capacity. They didn't say that. So we could parse it on its own terms that he was working for the FBI other than as a source or employee. And even if he wasn't working for the FBI, it doesn't necessarily mean he wasn't doing something on someone else's behalf. Epps revealed in a civil suit that he expects to face criminal charges for his role. The suit says that in May 2023, the Department of Justice notified Epps it would seek to charge him criminally for the events of January 6th, 2.5 years later. Yeah, okay. I still have questions about that, to be honest. Now, yes, are they going to charge him criminally, but then, kind of let him off the hook easily? Because maybe he is an asset of somebody. Maybe the FBI, maybe not. Maybe he's not an asset at all. I don't know. I'm not saying. I'm simply saying that, there's a question. In the suit, Epps states that he's not a federal agent, by which exactly, what do we mean exactly by federal agent? What exactly does that mean? Do we mean in the sense of being in the formal employ of the federal government? Or do we mean something a little bit less? Because it's not necessarily true that everyone who's working on behalf of the federal government is necessarily an agent in a technical sense. They might be working a little bit more off the books as an undercover informant, for example, or something like that. So is he an agent? I don't know. Does that mean he wasn't working for the federal government in some sense? Don't know, but that's not what they're saying. He also says he's a loyal Fox News viewer and Trump supporter. The suit alleges that had the Department of Justice charged him in 2021, Mr. Carlson would hail Epps as a hero. Well, I can't really speak to that, but it would show him being treated similarly to other people who have been charged, because we covered quite a few of these cases. And if Ray Epps is ever charged, we will definitely add one more to the FBI Capitol Riot series. So I wait for that to happen. Epps' suit seeks a trial and compensatory and punitive damages. So good luck with all that. Thus, that brings us to the end for the moment of Ray Epps, who says that he's going to be criminally charged, and I'll believe it when I see it. And even if he is, I wait to see if he's really prosecuted the same way everyone else is. Will he really be held to account? I have questions. Was Ray Epps an agent for some sort of law enforcement apparatus, either formally as an employee or as an undercover informant or something? I honestly don't know. I honestly don't know who he is or what he is or why he was there or what he is. But I do know that he seems to be treated differently than other people, which raises reasonable questions. Why is he being treated so differently? Is it truly because Ray Epps did nothing illegal and the FBI found that out and they're like, oh, there's just nothing we can charge him with? You know, we're a good FBI, we're a good Department of Justice, and there's simply nothing we can charge him with because he didn't do anything illegal. Is that it? Or is it more the fact that they're trying to cover up for something? I don't honestly know. I don't know. I honestly don't know. Maybe Ray Epps truly is nothing more than a Trump supporter who got a little out of control, but not in any illegal way, and the Department of Justice decided to defer. Maybe that's true. Or maybe something else. I don't know. But if he goes forward in this defamation lawsuit, I mean, they're going to ask him all kinds of questions about whether or not he's ever been in the employ of any sort of law enforcement, any contacts. And if their lawyers are smart, they'll ask it 18 different ways to really cover all their territory. So we'll see. At least for a moment, that gets us to the end of discussion of this story.